mic.
Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight, and thank you especially to our very, very busy panelists, the deans and associate deans from across campus. This is an extraordinary opportunity for all the students, and we really thank the deans for coming out tonight. I'd just like to take a second to introduce everyone. We have our moderator, Quinn Litherland. He's our organization's president. He's the president of the Entrepreneurs Club here on campus and also an extraordinary student and innovator himself, or innovator in the making. We have Dean Isaacs from the College of Engineering. We'd like to give her a quick round of applause for taking time out of her busy schedule. We have Dean Hudson from CAMD. Dean Sheppa from the Bouvet College of Health Sciences. And Associate Dean Bourne from the DeMoore McKim School of Business. Awesome, so I'm gonna hand it off to Quinn to kick our panel off.
So thank you so much for being here today. Honestly, I think this event has been in the making for a very long time, and I think it's fantastic that all the deans were able to come here. More of an intimate setting for everybody in this room to be able to hear directly from their dean and also give them some career advice. Just for myself, for some background, in the audit is ESSER tuning, and so in my freshman year, just having the opportunity to talk directly to somebody on the faculty side that just took time out of the day to talk to you was really a defining moment for me. So I really highly recommend everybody in the audience to take a second, either at the end to come and actually pose a question to your prospective dean, or even afterwards we're gonna have a quick kind of meet and greet where you can even talk face to face with your dean as well. So I just wanted to say that, so now we can get started. So I think best place to start is your backgrounds. So really kind of what were your individual journeys to the role that you are in today as a dean of a college at Northeastern University, and how did innovation or entrepreneurship factor into that journey? Dean Isaac, do you want to start?
Oh, thank you. You know, I'm thinking of you guys as the Entrepreneurs Club, so how interested would you be in my background and academia? So we were sort of chatting about that prior to the start of the session. And so I'm an engineer. When I was a young person in high school, I was good in science and math. I really wanted to be an architect. And I really liked industrial design, but I was tuned into my parents telling me, you know, you have to earn money, so go be an engineer. And back then, there were just disciplines, right? You just had chemical engineering, mechanical, materials. I ended up being a materials engineer. There were some programs that at my undergraduate institution that I didn't really explore. I kind of stayed between the lines. And as I went progressively through my PhD and realized that I didn't like the hardcore technology science, I wish I could have done something in engineering and public policy. I, looking back, said, oh, they actually had that at my former institution. So in terms of innovation, I ended up in a place that I really wanted to be, but it just took a lot longer. So I would encourage people here to look at what you have as combined majors, pluses, plus ones. There's so many things that you can do to create and innovate your own creative career path. I'll stop there and allow others to jump in, but I'm just thinking about the breadth of opportunities that we have now at Northeastern. Don't stay between the lines.
I couldn't have a more different story from Dean Isaacs, which is really hilarious, actually, because I started out as a musician, which actually is not exactly the kind of place you want to start where you're thinking either about innovation, because I was a classical musician, or about careers, or about anything concrete. And what's interesting is the ways in which, as I sort of became drawn into academia and have actually made a career as all of your deans at Northeastern are deans because we love to innovate, or we wouldn't be here. So the idea that there's actually a correlation between the kind of training that looks like it's actually sort of just a creative discipline that has nothing to do with innovation writ large, and yet finding out and discovering that in fact there's all sorts of transferable skills around creativity and how we think about creativity that a lot of people say, oh, don't you miss playing the piano now? It's like, actually, I don't, because that kind of creative thinking is what I'm doing every day as a dean. And I think to encourage you all to think about the ways in which you can make these kinds of combinations yourselves and have that kind of creative thinking in any kind of field, and that it will transform the way you think about both innovation and entrepreneurship, I think is a really sort of exciting possibility here at Northeastern.
So I come from Guatemala, where the education system is different. So I started as a teacher of elementary school. That was my high school education, and moved from there to medical school. And so I would say that the thread for me has been education at all levels, education for students, for patients, for people out there, to empower them to lead healthy lives. But the interesting thing in medical school that led me to then a PhD in nutrition and wellness and research and education was really the cross pollination, if you will, of disciplines in medical school, in the clinic world, where you really are working as a physician with the nurse and with the physical therapist and the dietitian and the nutritionist, et cetera, but not necessarily talking to one another. And innovation in that setting happens when you start moving from one discipline to the other. And the opportunities that we had to talk about how we instill nutrition and wellness in an environment that is about secondary or tertiary care, which is the hospital setting, is really critical to be challenging the system. So I would say for me, the component of innovation had to do with challenging the status quo of a discipline that is really very rigid. Being a physician is certain elements, but you cannot do that alone. It requires teamwork, it requires understanding others, and it also requires being in tune with the patients and the needs so that you ask the right questions to be an entrepreneur and to come up with solutions.
I think in my case, I'm trained in finance. I'm actually fairly conservative when it comes to financial decisions and the like. And I think for me, the turning point was an opportunity to work with a gentleman who was our dean in the business school for a few years, Tom Moore, who was very much an innovator, and so I was serving as his number two, and had taken a pretty traditional route to get there, but learned how to take risk, and I think that was a big step for me. And you know, Tom's motto was, if we fail, we throw it away and we try something else and we see what happens. We're not in healthcare. No one is likely to die, and so we shouldn't be scared of failure. We should embrace failure and try to learn from failure. And I found that to be very, very challenging because I suspect, like many others, I was a pretty decent student, and the thought of failing at something was just abhorrent to me. But if you constantly avoid failure, you stay in very, very narrow lanes, and that's not the path to being innovative or an entrepreneur.
Interesting. No, that's super interesting. And I think what's so unique, especially what we do with the Entrepreneurs Club, and one of my biggest realizations, even when we were preparing for this panel, is that innovation doesn't have to be in a lab, doesn't have to be an individual startup actually trying to make a change in an industry. Universities can innovate, companies can innovate, incumbents can innovate. So I guess on that note, and Dean Skepa, you kind of touched on this a little bit, and I'd love for you to start. What does innovation mean to you? How would you define that term? Because I know there's so many interpretations and definitions, so we'll start there. How would you define innovation for the audience today?
Yeah, I would say that to be innovative is to take the challenge and to, it's interesting you mentioned taking the risk. And because I was, in my little cheat sheet here, trying, failing, and course correcting. And it's interesting that that is the path in medicine, actually, in many ways, because a therapy may not work and the dose may not be right, et cetera, but it's that challenge of how you really utilize your skill set so that you fine-tune the opportunity to make it better by creating something that is like the magic ingredient, if you will, that would add to the whole recipe. And so it's that challenge of finding that fine-tuning and what is that ingredient.
Interesting. Dean Hudson, would you like to carry on?
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. I would think a little bit about, given my field, a little bit about creativity, because to me, creativity drives innovation. And there's actually a whole field of the science of creativity and scholarship on creativity that looks into what drives creativity. One of the things that's really interesting is we tend to think, oh, creative thinkers, they're just sort of out there brainstorming wildly. And yet, as we were saying earlier, if you want to think outside the box, you need to understand what's in the box, or you're at risk of you're just going to reinvent the wheel, and that's not really creative, because we already have the wheel. There's no innovation in that. So understanding something deeply and getting that training, and yet figuring out how to think beyond that. That, to me, is what both creative thinking and innovation is. And one of the things that has come up already as sort of a sub-theme is that by not staying within the lines, by crossing and collaborating across fields, they're finding that even in terms of the brain, what fuels creativity, and as people are really doing research around this, that it's actually about crossing different areas of the brain. That's where creative thinking is coming from. So thinking about specifically ways in which you have deep skills, and yet you're then allowing yourselves to challenge what those skills and ideas are across those categories, to me, is what creative thinking and innovative thinking surround.
So, of course, you might associate innovation with laboratories and research, but I also think of all of the clubs that you have at your fingertips here, where students have an idea and can go out and explore, how can I build a better skateboard? And you actually might have a lot of great ideas yourself, but the innovation comes when you share it with your roommate who's in a different field, or maybe they're in business. And then you brainstorm across, this is getting to our interdisciplinary theme, you brainstorm across those lines and those disciplines to come up with even better ideas. Of course, we have the traditional innovation where you're going into the lab to find a better sensor, find a better drug, find a better XYZ. But again, getting back to Dean Bourne's theme of failure, research is a lot about failure, because every day you're going to go in and hit the wall and go home and think about it and then start over again until this is an iterative process. There's going to be a lot of failure associated with it. But that brainstorming across disciplines are the things that those synergies, building those synergies, are taking us to the next level. So research is a lot about discovery, but it's discovery on a lot of different planes.
The only thing I would add is to say that I think sometimes we set too high a bar for ourselves, and there's a difference between absolutely brand new, which is an extraordinarily difficult bar to reach, versus better. And I think, frankly, if we think about most of the successful folks that we might be able to identify here in short order, very few of them have actually invented something that was positively brand new, nothing ever like it before. What most of them did was look at something that existed and found a much better way to either make it or market or make it appealing to customers. And so I think of innovation about making things better. And it doesn't necessarily mean I have to be able to paint the Mona Lisa, which is quite challenging.
Interesting. No, very well said. So, and I'm sure the majority of the individuals in the audience here today would love to hear a little bit more about what's really going on behind the scenes. What can they be excited for? What's going on within your prospective colleges around entrepreneurship, interdisciplinary innovation, and innovation in itself? And what can they look forward to as the semester kind of rolls out? Dean Bourne, you want to take this?
Sure. Well, you know, we have a lot to offer. Everyone has a lot to offer. Obviously, we have a group, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Group, but we're not the sole home for academics that relates to entrepreneurship. This is a campus-wide commitment, and so but we do have a very strong academic unit. We've got, oh my goodness, combined majors across the various colleges here, dialogues, minors. The list of activities is extensive. The clubs that have been mentioned, many of them have a faculty advisor, and many of those come from DMSB. And many of our faculty are entrepreneurs themselves, angel investors themselves. So there's really quite a vibrant culture in the business school, and I think there are great opportunities. But it's not just us. There's no one from the group here, right? I'm supposed to say it's just us, but it's not just us. It's a campus-wide set of activities, and I'll let them tell more about what they've got going.
I think for Bouvet College of Health Sciences, it's true, you know, the recipe of you have combined majors, interdisciplinary minors, a lot of academic opportunities that way, which would be true for all of our colleges. In Bouvet, what is interesting is that all of our approach is human-centered, but it's not only in the hospital setting or the clinical setting, it's in the community, it's in the school setting, it's in the family, in the populations. So that's an interesting concept for you to explore as you think about ways in which you can impact human life and society and answer some of the problems or address some of the problems that we see in society. And so our students can collaborate with students across the university for some of these opportunities to be in these settings that are uniquely positioned to be asking questions that are relevant for these problems. We also have a health sciences entrepreneurship program or group that was initiated over 14 years ago by some of our alumni. And this is a vibrant group as well, who it's always welcoming students who then are mentored by some of our alumni entrepreneurs themselves to get involved and be creating prototypes and ideas for innovation. We have an entrepreneur in residence, and this is someone who is, you know, available to students on a regular basis. Our approach to education in Bouvet is interprofessional, so we have all the disciplines that complement healthcare, from nursing to physical therapy, speech-language pathology, public health, etc. So that's also a very rich setting. We have a simulation center where we come together and basically create a situation like we see in the real world and then try to look at how to solve it. And so that simulation center is also an incubator for ideas.
Wow.
Okay, so I'll repeat what's already been said, that we, yes, have all of these wonderful ways that you can interact. I'll point to 4 particular things, 2 sort of more general areas, and then 2 specific things that are coming forward this semester, so quite specific. So as Some of you, I hope, already know, we do have a number of student clubs within CAMD that really create the opportunity for entrepreneurship in creative fields. So Scout being the foremost one in relationship to design, but also Green Line Records, which has students from all colleges involved in sort of thinking about entrepreneurship in that area, and Silver Mask as a theater group. So those are three main areas and many more possibilities within CAMD. I think the second thing I'd point to is that in many ways I think of the wealth of opportunities in ways you can combine with CAMD partly being about some of the core literacies that drive innovation and entrepreneurship, and that is creativity, communication, and collaboration. And a lot of what's going on across all these ways that you can engage with us are about allowing you to have the disciplines of creativity, disciplines of collaboration, disciplines of communication, which are so key to really whatever it is that you want to do. I'll point to two particular things that are happening this semester, which I think I'm excited about. One is that we are just now launching a group of interdisciplinary 4+1 programs. That is ways in which you can add on a +1 master's program in a variety of innovative creative fields like information design, experience design, arts administration and cultural entrepreneurship, creative practice leadership, from an undergraduate major that's different. So it can be an interdisciplinary combination rather than you don't have to already be a major in design in order to go on and do a master's in this field. So this idea, as we have all emphasized, crossing these interdisciplinary lines is so important. So I'm excited that we're offering this new model for thinking about ways of making combinations. We love our combined majors, they're fantastic, but for some people you might want to complete a 4-year major in business, and that's the right thing for you, and then adding something like a +1 in some of these fields might be attractive. So I'm excited about that. The second thing that I'm really excited about, I'll give you a heads up now, is that we are launching a new center for design that is very much an interdisciplinary hub around the fields of design, connecting across campus, and will be further fostering the work of Scout. We have a wonderful new professor of design from Italy, Paolo Ciccarelli, who's establishing this center, and we're going to have a launch in early December. And I'm extremely excited about that as something that really sort of fuels this creative thinking around design in relationship to the work and the exciting work across all the colleges, not just in CAMD.
Amazing.
For engineering, we are, of course, having all kinds of design projects throughout the curriculum. So you're getting that starting in your freshman year, and it culminates in a capstone design project. But you have to do that. Here's the things that are the funner things, possibly fun things. You know, when you search for a co-op, where are you going to go? If you're looking for entrepreneurship and you're not ready to start your own company, right, because that takes a lot, that's a whole different topic, you might work at a startup. You could explore these smaller companies that are trying to make a difference in healthcare or in some kind of Internet of Things. But there's, if you go back to the sort of more traditional innovation, there's a research fair that's coming up next week that's running across the whole university, where faculty are going to be there looking for students to work in their labs, to learn more about the really cool ideas that they're exploring in their innovations, and the science, the engineering, but across the whole college, across the whole university. So you might get ideas from working with people. Faculty are working on research that they're patenting. Some of these are turning into startup companies that are rolling out. There is a lot of opportunity there at this research fair. So I would consider, if that's something you're interested in, I think it's on September 24th in the evening. Yeah. And, but with specific interest in engineering, you know, we have, as I've heard, hundreds of clubs across, hundreds of clubs. You guys are fantastic. You know, there's a new idea for a new club. more specifically, the Sherman Center for Engineering Entrepreneurship Education is a real starting point in engineering. There's a couple of different clubs that are held under that umbrella. Generate is one that helps you think through some of your ideas. Rev is when you're really looking for people from the outside to give input information, people that have been retired who have insights and make connections with venture capitalists and that sort of thing. But I also know that they have, once you get to a point where you've perhaps been working on your own idea or have worked with a team in your capstone project and you'd like to explore that a little further, they have a competition for several co-op slots where you could take time, and there's funding from outside donors that have created these co-op positions for particular individuals to come in and work on their ideas for 6 months, get paid to do it because of the generosity of some of our previous alumni, to work on these ideas in this space. If you haven't visited the Sherman Center, it's in the basement of Hayden. So if you walk through the tunnels down there, they've just done a big renovation and there's a lot of new maker space downstairs. Not a lot of tools. It's different than what makerspace where you'd have the 3D printers, but it's a design space. And separate from that, I'd say we have a Galanti Fellows program for a master's degree at, that you pursue concurrently. You'll get a BS and it's a +1 again, but it's a very cool program to provide engineering students with business savvy as they both go through their undergraduate and then complete this master's program.
Wow, that's so exciting. So my follow-on question to that would be, I myself am a junior now, so a third year, and I'm sure there's some freshmen in the room, and I know what it feels like to be a freshman, and understand there's a lot of opportunities on campus and ways to get involved, ways that I can maybe change my major and take advantage of some interdisciplinary opportunities, or even get involved on campus. Like now I'm the president of the Entrepreneurs Club, and so just quickly, my story is started off as a student athlete and just didn't feel like my place was on the entrepreneurial side, didn't think I could get involved on campus. So my question would be, what would you advise students in the audience who feel that they don't know how to get involved, but also just they don't want to take that next step, or they're honestly scared to take that next step? Because I myself, I know personally what that feeling is like. Dean Hudson, do you want to start with that?
I was just talking to the first-year students in Camden about this because my own daughter's a sophomore here, and you think, she has stuff figured out. I'm sitting there going, you don't have time to waste. You've got to follow this stuff up. You've got to explore. You've got to do these things. And I understand how overwhelming it can be, and I wish more of you could talk more with us. I think the thing that I've encouraged her to do and that I saw that she needed encouragement for, so I would in turn encourage you, we all want to help you. We understand that it's having this much opportunity is incredibly daunting, and everybody here wants to help you. So reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't think you have to know the answer before you ask the question. Say, I don't know what to do, and be able to brainstorm, and that's creative thinking and innovation. Brainstorm about what excites you, finding those things that excite you and using that, owning that, believing in that, believing that that's what makes you special, and having us help you figure out how to make that your own path. That's what Northeastern is about. And don't wait 2 years because you're too afraid to talk to the people who all want to talk with you and help you do that.
Well said. Dean Hudson, Dean Isaacs, would you like to go ahead?
Well, ditto. Can't say it too much better than that, but as I said, if I hearken back to my own undergraduate experience, if I had only asked those questions, I had been too afraid to ask about what if I did a double major, and I would be in perhaps a different place. But I ended up, I love engineering. I'm in a good place. My research has taken me out of the laboratory and more into the policy side, working with people, looking at communications. If I give advice to engineering students, it's also to not just understand the technological aspects of your skill set, but even though we all say that we don't like English, there's a facet of that which is communication, and being able to communicate, being able to sell your idea, being able to network with people, engage with people. You're going to have to do that. You can't just sit, you can't just build a better, I keep using skateboard. But I have to say, this is a little aside, I teach a class on sustainability, and one of the students came back to me. He had been here as an undergraduate, and he was building a better skateboard. The way he was doing it was he was sourcing nylon from fishing nets in Argentina and bringing them up to Massachusetts to remold them into the fish-shaped skateboard to have a sustainable. It's such a cool story, and it was highlighted in Northeastern News. But that said, you can build your dream, and there are many paths to get there. Yeah.
What I would add is that because of the flexibility in and understanding that the curriculum is rigid with some components of the core elements that you have to, core courses that you have to fulfill for your majors or combined majors, there are opportunities and really opportunities that encourage you to really take an elective outside of your college. And it's a way to get the NU Path attributes, but it's also a way to really explore what's out there that you may be interested in doing. And your academic advisors and your program directors and faculty would be able to certainly work with you to navigate that process. But I would say really put yourselves in the situation of really looking for a class that is not one that you would have considered otherwise, because that really will allow you an entry into, another college where you feel like you know somebody, you know your professor. And the university is also utilizing some other ways in which we all can communicate about experiences like SAIL. Everybody has heard about that. But really, as we develop that further, it will be an opportunity to communicate experiences that then connect students in different ways to think about outside their fields.
Interesting. Dean Bourne, thoughts?
So I'll ask a show of hands on a ridiculous question. So how many of you have heard of Steve Jobs? Okay. So what? One of the more famous business personages here in this country in the last 100 years, fired from Apple. Failure is part of the path to success. I teach a course or I have taught courses in entrepreneurial finance, and finding the secret to getting to the money is a big part of whether you're going to be successful, at what stage, at what scale you're going to be successful. And but there's a cautionary tale here, which is on average 18 months after you get your first dollar from a venture capital, the founding CEO is fired. So part of the process, the reason why when you talk to successful entrepreneurs is that they talk about failure all the time, is they learn how to play the financing game better. And they have to have 2 or 3 companies stolen from them by the finance guys before they figure it out. And usually it's by the 3rd or 4th time. I hope that we can help you cut 1 or 2 of those out of your career path. We've got wonderful opportunities here, both to encourage creativity and innovation, but we've also got courses to take maybe outside of your area, which involve giving you just a little bit of an insight into how the world of business works, so that your hard-earned idea doesn't get snatched from you right away. So I hope that, I know this is a shameless plug for my own area, but I really think that most people don't fully understand the world of business, which is a big part of whether innovation is going to be successful or not. And so just a little bit of knowledge would be quite helpful, no matter where you're choosing to get your degree from here.
Interesting. Okay, so just look at the time. I think we have time for one more question, and then my co-president, Fernanda Lopez, will come up and talk a little bit more about the organization, and then it'll be the opportunity to actually meet your deans face to face. So the last question from my end would be, taking a huge step back, not even your prospective college, even Northeastern, from all of your experience that you've all had in such unique verticals and areas, what would be the one piece of advice you'd offer the students in the audience today? Yeah, I think that's the best way to end this off. Dean Bourne, you were kind of on the path of giving advice, so maybe you wanna start it off.
We've touched on this here, so I want to encourage you to explore outside your comfort zone. I tell people that I'm actually a closet historian. I took many history courses as a student, even though I'm a business major. If you come to my home, you'll find 10 history titles for every one business title you'll find on my library. And I think it's that willingness to explore other areas that will serve you well in life.
I would say, I think I'm saying the same thing, but I would say be curious about things so that you're asking questions, you're really like inquiring about different things, and you're trying to put together the information and the opportunity by really validating some of your ideas with the right set of players. So definitely innovation doesn't happen by one person really, it doesn't happen in the vacuum. So you really need to have that collaboration for it to brew from there.
I would actually say that more and more research is showing us that detailed creative engagement in particular fields changes our brains, and it changes them permanently. And so I would encourage you or challenge you to find ways to get involved in the kind of creative work that involves nonlinear thinking. That's what the sort of creative arts traditionally do. You don't have to become an artist. You shouldn't become an artist. But engaging and understanding what that nonlinear thinking can do for your work in business, your work in engineering, your work in all of these different fields can make you more innovative.
And I'll echo, I have to go last. What else? But I think we all had encouraged all these different programs where you can explore through your educational route. You know, these clubs are an extreme opportunity for you to explore quickly and determine what you like and what you don't like. And by using your clubs and your out of classroom experiences, you can learn so much, and then use that to redirect where you want to focus your curricular activities. There's so many competitions that can be really fun, and where you're trying to build a better skateboard. No, you know, you have just so many opportunities, but again, try joining something outside your comfort zone and see how it feels.
Well said. Can we have a huge round of applause for our panelists? So I believe we should have some mics going around. If not, you might have to stand and say it out loud, but we'll have some time afterwards. But are there any questions?
Hello, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. My question is that we have talked about having an idea, starting with it, but how do we convert just an idea into a sustainable idea? What are the key, what are the steps to be taken?
Give the mic to me.
Oh, wow, we have whole classes in just this. I don't think I can distill them, but there are a variety of steps that we actually suggest that folks go through, where they gather information about what their market looks like that they might be competing in, and take some reality checks, and then develop something that might be akin to a business model to see if, in fact, there's any economic reason to continue down this road. We were talking before the start of the panel about the tremendous array of wonderfully designed and made products which have never found a marketplace. So at some point, pretty quickly, there has to be a reality check in the marketplace. Is anybody interested in this wonderfully designed thing that I've made? And what's often very difficult to hear as the innovator is that the answer is no.
I'll just say, I don't have an answer either, and there are lots of courses. But I have found it really interesting to listen to this podcast. It's called How I Built This. Has anybody in this crowd listened to it? Good. So I find that to be really engaging and interesting, to listen to other people's stories and learn from their successes and failures along the way. So I think there's a lot to be gained by listening to other people talk about their own experience.
Any other questions? The mic is on its way.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I was wondering, so I feel like a lot of people are inherently innovative. However, they're not sure how best to put that innovation to good use, be it in their career choice or just in their personal lives. And also, how do you feel what's the best way you think is to handle failure that comes with the fact that your innovation isn't really putting out the results that you wanted to put out?
If your innovation isn't working, you need to revise. That's part of the iterative process that we're all describing. So in fact, that's what we're also saying, not to be afraid of recognizing failure. It's not working. Why isn't it working? Analyzing. These are all the tools that are being described. Is it a great idea and it's not being communicated well? Is it not a great idea because it's not really solving the right problem? Does it not have the right market? There are various ways, and that's part of the process of learning how to ask the right questions when something isn't working. And that's sort of what a lot of this education is about. How do we learn to ask the right questions?
I would add to that having mentors. So you are also having some checks and balances of what it is that you want to do, and talking to experts, because that really is another way. I talked earlier about validating what you're developing, and that comes from expertise that is around you that you need to reach out for mentoring. The health science entrepreneurship and many of the clubs and many of the incubators and opportunities the university has usually try to match students with mentors so that there is some back and forth and brainstorming, as we talked earlier, that would allow for that refining.
And I would add that sometimes it's just getting somebody outside of your circle to take a look at something. A product that will date me a little bit is a well-known failure. The 3M company was trying to make a great glue. It failed because things wouldn't stick well. They became Post-it notes. But it wasn't, they had given up on the process and the product until someone from management walked around and saw all of the failed glue being used to hold ideas up on the wall and realized, oh my God, there's a market for the product that we've rejected. So sometimes it's getting someone that's completely different to look at it, and we'll say, but yeah, you can't use it for this, but did you know you could go this way with it? And you'll turn a failure into a remarkable success, possibly.
That's great.
Very interesting. So I think just looking at the time, we'll save the rest of the questions for afterwards, just as like the meet and greet. Fernanda, I'll hand it off to you to talk a little bit more about the organization, but why don't we have one more round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Fernanda. I'm the co-president of the Entrepreneurs Club. So before we start, raise your hand if you had heard about interdisciplinary innovation before coming to this panel. Okay, so I see half and half. I just want to reiterate the reason why we were hosting this panel, why it's important. I think, honestly, innovation and entrepreneurship is usually very associated with business, and especially your business school. And for us as a club, it's so important to give you the resources and the support for you to be an innovator in whatever field you choose to go to. So whether you're an engineer, whether you're a designer, or studying business itself, it's so important for us to actually be able to give you what you need in order to be successful. So that was a little bit about the reason why we were hosting this panel. And then raise your hand if it's your first Entrepreneurs Club event.
Wow.
So we practiced, well, I practiced for like 2 hours, this pitch for Entrepreneurs Club. So first off, the Entrepreneurs Club is the largest student-run organization at Northeastern University. We have over 1,000 active members, and we currently have 4 programs. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you a little bit of information about each one of them so you're aware of the opportunities that we're offering. First off, we have Tuesday Speaker Series. We bring Boston's top founders to actually share with you career advice and how you can make the most out of your Northeastern journey, but also learn so much about innovation. Founders of Kayak.com, DraftKings, and also people that are super interested in just helping you and giving you some type of mentorship. Then we have our Husky Startup Challenge. Can the director raise her hand? Woo! So Aline is our director, along with Chris of the Husky Startup Challenge. This is our venture incubator. What we do is that if you have an idea to actually build a business or build a venture and you're super interested just learning more about entrepreneurship, this is a great program and we're gonna be kicking it off this Saturday. So I'm gonna give you more details about that. Then we have Engage, which is meant to teach you the interdisciplinary hard skills to be a successful entrepreneur and innovator in any field that you want. And then we have our Ambassador program. This is a great chance for our most dedicated and passionate members. We are taking a cohort of around 30 to 40 students this semester, making sure that we are giving you tailored workshops and really good opportunities for you to be successful. We touched a little bit about Mosaic. I want to ask our panel, does anyone want to give the spiel on Mosaic? Should I give it?
Give it.
Okay, I'll give it. So Mosaic is known as a community that holds a lot of entrepreneurship organizations here on campus. So we are one of them, and we like to think of us as the entry door to all of the rest of these amazing organizations. So we have Generate, Ideas, Scout, Wise. We have a lot of organizations here on campus and a lot of resources for you to really make the most out of your entrepreneurial journey here at the school. So if you want to learn more, we're always around and we're willing to explain you more about it, but it's a great opportunity for you to get more involved. And here is a slide of our next events. Please take a picture. We're gonna reload it at the end because we have more details. But if you've heard of DraftKings, we have Jason Robbins coming up this upcoming Tuesday. He's gonna give a great talk about his journey, the advice that he has, and just how he founded this whole company. Then we have Engage. We have a wireframing workshop. So if you're interested in designing beautiful websites and apps, definitely it's a workshop for you. And then we have the Husky Startup Challenge, which will kick off this Saturday. So if you want to learn more, our directors will be there at the end, as well as our director of Engage and Tuesday Speaker Series if you want more information. This is the slide, actually, that you should take a picture of, please. Sorry. And I'm gonna hand it off back to Quinn to kind of explain this activity, but thank you so much. And the whole board will be after if you have more questions about getting more involved, are interested in learning more about our programs, and just interested more about our community. Thank you.
So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And I think one of the main topics we discussed today was interdisciplinary innovation, but also I think a topic of collaboration came about. So in order of collaborating, the deans are going to be nice enough to actually stay behind, and the entire board will as well. So if you have any questions, either for us or your respective dean, please stay behind and feel free to ask it. Of course, be respectful of your deans as well. I think that's pretty important. And so yeah, so I think we can be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll call it a night. So thank you so much, and yeah, we'll make our way down to the floor, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah.